Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, we are going to do our hot plays, fades, and sleepers for Week 3 of the fantasy football season. I'm joined by my son, Henry Paur.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on the show as always, Henry. Really a lot of fun talking with you. We do this every week. We're going to give you 4 hot plays at each position: quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end, and then 3 fades, and then 2 sleepers. So we're cover it all, run the gamut, as they say, and we're going to tell you some players we like, some players we don't like, and maybe some players that might surprise. Should be a good week of action, Henry. Some good games on the slate. Looking forward to some of them. For sure, we'll talk about them as we go along, though, right?
Yep.
All right, let's jump into it right now. Let's start with hot plays, Henry. Who's your first hot play for the week?
I have Geno Smith. He just torched New England last week. I know New England's not the best team in the world, but they were dominant passing the ball last week. And he only had 1 touchdown and still put up around 18 fantasy points. I think those numbers are going to prove they're going to score more. They play Miami this week. I think they're going to score a ton on this defense. They're going to pass for a bunch more yards. I think this is a big Geno Smith game.
Lots of weapons on that Seattle team. Geno Smith definitely has the potential to go boom. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I thought he got it going last week against the Chiefs. I know that they blew that game in the end, but overall I thought he played well. Top 20 fantasy points, threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that offense is finally starting to come together a little bit. Maybe T. Higgins comes back as well. But they play the Commanders this week. Love that matchup. They've allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. I think Burrow has a big Week 3. All right, Henry, give me your running back hot play.
I have Tony Pollard. He plays the Green Bay Packers this week, who have been very bad against the run this year. Saquon ran all over in Week 1, as we all know, put up around 34 points. Taylor, relatively quiet day last week, but it wasn't really on him. He had 12 carries for 103 yards still. He was dominant on the run. They were just behind most of the game, couldn't run the ball because of that. So I think Pollard gets it going this week, as the game probably should be pretty close if there's no Love again, but there could be a good chance there's Love. But either way, Pollard's getting a lot of work in the passing game, and I expect him to be dominant on the ground as well.
And Tajay Spears is banged up as well, kind of iffy to play, so I think Pollard could even get more work there. I like Travis Etienne a lot this week. I know he hasn't done a whole lot on the ground. He has failed to top 55 rushing yards each of his 2 games, but he's found the end zone both of those games, so that's a positive. He has 12-plus fantasy points each of those 2 games. I think he starts piling up the yards this week. I like him to do it against the Bills, who have not been very good against the run this year. They allow the 2nd most fantasy points to running backs, 131.5 rushing yards per game as well. So I think Etienne gets a big workload in this matchup. All right, Henry, give me your receiver hot play.
I have my guy Marvin Harrison this week. He just blew up the Rams defense last week. Huge game. And now this week he goes into Detroit. Well, they're in Arizona, but he faces Detroit. But this could be a monster game for him. Detroit's been bad against the pass so far this year, and Harrison just showed the world why he was drafted 4th overall and was one of the greatest receiver prospects of all time. So I think Marvin Harrison is another blow-up game here against Detroit.
I'm going to pick a receiver from that same game with the other team, and that's Jameson Williams. I love the way he started his year. He's looked good the first 2 games. He's been targeted 20 times those 2 games. Has a rush attempt each game as well, so he's getting a lot of looks. I think he's a legit low-end #1 fantasy receiver right now. I think he'll play really well this week against the Cardinals. They allow the 9th most fantasy points of receivers to start the year. I think this will be a shootout. You want to get a lot of players involved. I think Williams plays great.
Yeah, I agree with that take, though. That Detroit-Arizona game, that could be the game of the week this week.
Looking forward to that one. Give me your tight end hot play.
I have Brock Bowers. He's leading the league as tight end for yards so far. So a little bit of a shocker to see a rookie here, but Brock Bowers has been dominant. Seems to be Gardner Minshew's safety blanket in this offense, and he's shown he's made good work of that. He's also getting targets down the field, and last week he could have had even a better week than his 9 for 93 last week. He was tackling the 1-yard line. And this week he faces Carolina, who they got some problems over there. So I think Brock Bowers is another huge week here and shows the world why he was a great tight end prospect.
I like Kyle Pitts this week, everybody's favorite tight end who has done nothing to start his career, but I think he gets it going this week. I know his numbers haven't been great to start the season outside of his touchdown, but I think that offense started to click at the end of last week in that game against Philadelphia, their big comeback win. I think it bodes well against their game against Kansas City this week, who's been terrible against the tight end to start the year. They have allowed the most fantasy points to tight ends, just been a disaster against the tight end, so I think Pitts has a big week 3. All right, let's talk about the opposite end of things, Henry. Give me a fade for this week, somebody you don't like too much.
I have Jalen Waddle to start it off. They face Seattle, who's been a very good defense so far against the pass this year, and their new head coach. And there's no Tua this week, so I'm a little worried about Skylar Thompson and Waddle. Very bad week last week, and the week before he had a good week, but I really worry about Waddle, backup quarterback here against a very good defense. I'd worry about Waddle this week.
I don't like Anthony Richardson this week. Erratic start to the year. I saw that he actually is thrown behind the best offensive line in football. Still having problems. I don't think that's a good sign. I don't like his accuracy. Now he plays Chicago this week, a very good defense. They allow the 7th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. I think if he doesn't do much on the ground, he's not going to do much at all in this game. That's a concern for me. I might just stay away from him this week despite that rushing upside. All right, Henry, give me another one of your fades.
I have Ramondre Stevenson. I know he's looked great to start the year. He's gotten a ton of attempts, but last week we saw Antonio Gibson eating it at work a little bit and show that he was still pretty solid. I think he had almost more yards per carry last week on a lot less attempts. I could see him work a little bit more this week in the receiving game. And they play the Jets tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. Yeah. And the Jets are a very good defense, as we know. And I could see the Jets getting out ahead in this one, and then the Patriots having to pass the ball a lot. I worry about Stevenson this week.
I don't like Aaron Jones of Minnesota. He was a guy I was kind of steering clear of all season, quite frankly. Before the year, I was just worried about him and his age of his career and his injury history. But he was outplayed by backup Ty Chandler last week. He lost a fumble at the goal line as well. Jones ran 9 times for just 32 yards. He's not going to lose his job, but I think Chandler might eat into it a little more going forward, especially with Jones a little nicked up already. He's missed practice. He's been limited in practice to start this week. Plays the Texans this week. They allow the 3rd fewest fantasy points to running back, 7th overall against the run. I think Jones is a guy that might not do much in this matchup. All right, Henry, give me your last fade.
I have Devin Singletary. He had a very solid week last week against Washington, but now he faces Cleveland. Cleveland kept Etienne in check last week, and I expect them to do the same thing here against a very poor New York offense, who I expect the pass ball we could see a lot more Malik Neighbors again this week.
That's true. Yeah, I worry about this matchup for sure for Singletary this week. I'm going to go with Mike Evans as my last sit. Chris Godwin's been the guy getting a ton of work. Evans had just 3 receptions for 42 yards last week. He has 8 catches for 103 yards in 2 games. So if he's not finding the end zone, not much of a help to fantasy teams. I'm not sure he finds the end zone this week against Patrick Surtain in coverage against Denver, one of the best cover corners in the game. I don't think it bodes well for Evans, and it's tough to sit him. But if you have better options, I might actually consider them this week. All right, Henry, let's talk about a sleeper, somebody maybe flying under the radar. Who do you like?
I have Jordan Whittington of the Rams against San Francisco. I think they're at the throw the ball, and I think Whittington's that guy that's going to emerge out of all these receivers being hurt. I think he's going to play the slot, and he played great in the preseason, looked legit. I think the rookie out of Texas has a great week against the 49ers.
So I'm going to go on the opposite side of you, Henry. I'm going to say Demarcus Robinson of the Rams. He seems the best bet for consistent production, and the Rams clearly believe in him. His stats aren't anything special each of his first 2 games, but Robinson has played a ton. He has played at least 92% of the snaps each of his first 2 games. I think he could be a sneaky play this week against the 49ers, a team that allows the 4th most fantasy points to receivers. All sorts of injuries in this game, and I think it's going to be tough to figure out that Rams situation from week to week, Henry. But I like Robinson this week, and you like Whittington.
Yep.
All right. Give me your last sleeper for the week.
I have Darnell Mooney. Seemed to have a breakout week last week as a big clutch guy in that drive for Kirk Cousins. It seemed like Kirk Cousins got some confidence, it seems, going into this next game. It's going to be a tough one against Kansas City on Sunday Night Football, but I think Mooney is going to be the 2nd receiving option here in Atlanta. So I like a good matchup here. I mean,
they could be playing from behind,
yeah,
too.
Playing from behind. Yeah, I think it looks great here for Mooney.
I agree. My last sleeper is a streamer at quarterback. So if you want to go to that streaming option, you're looking for somebody to pick up, he's actually available in a lot of leagues still, if your waiver wire hasn't run yet. But it's Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings. He's off to a strong start as a Vikings starter. I believe in him. He scored 23.6 fantasy points last week against a good 49ers defense in that Vikings upset victory. Darnold has thrown at least 2 touchdowns each of his first 2 games. Looks like a solid start play for fantasy teams. I think he'll do well this week against the Texans. They allow the 8th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So if you're looking for an option at QB this week, I like Sam Darnold. Henry, thanks so much for coming on the show this week. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's always a great time.
Should be a great week of games, Henry. Good luck in all your games this week. I hope you have a lot of success.
Yeah, good luck to you as well.
And good luck to everybody out there in week 3. I hope you have a lot of wins for your fantasy week. This has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Have a great day.